So today we have Lolita Rozenbaum, okay? Old student of mine. When did you apply to college? 2018, 2019?
Apply to college?
Yeah.
2020.
Oh my God. But we started back in 2017?
Yeah, 2016.
Oh my God, yeah, that's crazy. Okay, the whole point of this interview is really to give insight into what advice you would really give to high school students / college students as a recent college grad and somebody who now, excuse me if I may, but is going to be at 21 years old earning a multiple six-figure income from Netflix. Tell us a little bit about your college experience first, then we'll go into the high school stuff.
Yeah, so at Vandy, I'm majoring in computer science and math and minoring in engineering management, and I love it. I think that Vandy was like an awesome place to be because you can really do anything cross-disciplinary. Yes, at school in my actual classes, I'm doing all the engineering core and all of my actual programming lessons, but outside of school, I'm in like the business fraternity and I'm networking with people who like are doing investment banking, consulting. So I've had a bunch of opportunities to see what I want to do with my life. At the end of the day, I do like engineering, so I will be going into software engineering. But I think that Vanderbilt as a school allows you to really explore so many options for what you can be doing.
Tell me about the opportunities, right? So while you were there, how you actually got the job at Netflix, what exactly happened? Because basically, from my understanding, you got the job third year of college.
Yes. So my probably like sophomore year going into junior year summer, I started applying to things. I just started looking at literally Google, how do I do a software engineering interview? Because the actual industry is quite different from what you're learning in class. In class, you're learning a lot of the fundamentals, but in terms of interviewing, it's a lot of like leak code and really intense algorithms. So I found 100 or so top tier software engineering internships. So I just started applying, and then they would all send me online assessments, which are just coding interviews. So I sat there for like my entire first semester of junior year. Class was on the back burner. I was just doing these like hardcore challenges and no one would answer. And then I was like, this is a problem. So I just started talking to people who were older than me, who I met through just classes or in the business fraternity. And I was talking to them and they were like, just ask for a referral. So I just started talking to people and they would give me referrals and then they would give me their advice. And then actually Netflix was without a referral, but it was really funny because everything that I did get a referral from, like I got some interviews and it's way more intense when you're actually interviewing with a company and there's someone watching you code. You never really think about how you're thinking and you really have to explain yourself. You get a little flustered, but I really mastered the art of doing the technical interview, and that's how you're supposed to do software engineering. Because once you get past the technical interviews, the behaviorals are so easy if you know how to speak about yourself. And the business fraternity taught me that because once you're friends with a lot of consultants and investment bankers, they know how to sell themselves. In terms of engineers, if you know how to sell yourself as an engineer, you're set. Netflix, I got the online assessment, and then I remember taking it when I was home actually. And then I got to the next round and it was a technical, and then I solved the problem, which is a really good sign. And I was like, wait, I just solved the problem, and I was so excited. They like kept me in the dark for 2 weeks, and I was like, that's it, I'm done for. And then they emailed me, they're like, you got to the next round, which was a system design interview. And a system design interview is only given to senior level software engineers who have built systems. I had no idea what I was doing, and my interview was scheduled for 2 days after I got the email. So for 2 days straight, I watched non-stop YouTube tutorials of how to do system design interviews. And I asked a bunch of people older than me who had taken system design interviews and they all helped me. And then I got into the interview, the Google Meet, and they were like, design Netflix. I was like, I just watched a YouTube video on this. And I regurgitated all of that and I like applied all of the concepts I had learned for those 2 days, and it was great. And then my last interview was a behavioral, and I was like, okay, behavioral I can do. And it was a really good culmination of everything because I talked about everything I'd learned throughout the process and my past experiences. And then I finally got the offer.
So that's interesting. So let's just say, because this is the biggest issue amongst the Russian community or amongst any community really, okay? And it's, oh, college is useless. College is a complete waste of money. College is nothing, right? And I've been screaming for the past decade or more that you guys don't understand. I don't think you get it. This is all a lie. Stop listening to this, right? And from what I heard from your story, because you're living proof, that if you did not attend Vandy, this would have never happened.
I agree completely.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people think, especially in tech, that you can just teach yourself, which you can. And you can 100% teach yourself and go work, but you're not gonna work at a FANG company. You're not gonna work for one of those companies that recruits from top tier colleges. My intern class of like 120 had everyone from all of the Ivy Leagues were represented. We had a couple Vandy kids. It was top tier computer science programs. Like we had, I think, over 10 MIT kids in a class of 120 interns, which top computer science program in the country. So you need to have been there in order to get in. Because the only engineers who were working there were also from top tier colleges or had been working there since Netflix was a startup. So if you want to go into startups, sure, but that's not really a guarantee of anything.
Now, let's talk about the reality. You are in a ton of debt, yes?
Yes.
Now, but you, in particular, would have crunched the numbers 7,000 times. When do you plan on being out of that debt?
I think it's around like 10-ish years, just because I don't want to pay it off all at once. I theoretically could, but why? I get tax benefits by being in debt.
So do you think that being in debt is somehow a limiting factor?
No, I don't think so at all. Yes, Vanderbilt is now close to $100,000 a year. I still went abroad. I have taken all the classes I want to, and I have a great job post-grad that will pay off my debt. I don't really think it's like limiting me in anything, except for the fact that I can't really spend all of the money I have from my first paycheck on anything I would ever want.
And in my mind, we can call it good debt, we can call it bad debt, because I'm sitting there going on vacation and traveling the world, right? As debt is accumulated from business ventures, real estate, and so on and so forth. And in my mind, one of the things that makes this country great is the fact that you could be in a ridiculous amount of debt, and you could use that debt to leverage either A, in the case of the education, your own skills, or B, leverage assets in ways that you normally can't. So like the financial perspective is so cool because you're literally living proof of this, right? Of somebody who's leveraging debt to increase their skill set and using that skill set to earn so much more. We had a conversation about this, but as the positions go up in Netflix, the pays get exponentially higher.
Yeah.
Which then you're what? 400, 500K worth of debt is little, and it's not even that, right? Your 320 is out the window, right?
Yeah.
It's almost irrelevant. It's like a Netflix subscription, right? The mentality in general, the poor stay poor and the richer get richer. And my pedagogy tells me that that's because people don't value an education. People will go into debt because of an education. And I'm sitting here screaming at the top of my lungs, like, what are you guys doing?
I think it was so worth it. I think that regardless, I had the option when I was choosing colleges. I had safety schools that offered me so much money and I would have practically gone to college for free. I didn't want to go. I was like, Vanderbilt is a top tier institution. Why would I miss out on that to save a couple bucks now when I know that it could just put me in a better place in the future?
Would you say that that debt motivated and still motivates you?
Yes. A lot of people are also on like financial aid or have college funds. I didn't have a college fund, so I was like, you know what? I'm going here and I'm just gonna have to make it back, and that's it. There's no other option because I'm not gonna be living in it forever. I have to make it back.
That's really cool. So would you give any type of advice to somebody who's going through the process?
If you're concerned as to where you want to go depending on how much it costs or something like that, don't think of it in terms of the financial aspects. Think of it in terms of the opportunities it can give you. If it has the field you're looking for and it's the top pre-med or computer science, for example, institution, go for it, because that will set you up to do amazing in life. And if you have a great first job out of college, that's not going to be your first job forever, but it's a really good starting point.
Okay, now we're gonna go into our experience, okay, and what that was like. Tell me about what made you kind of stick with it.
So my first experience, I heard about it from a family friend, and I called to like get SAT tutoring, and they were like, you have to take a practice exam. And I was like, okay, fine. And I was a middle schooler, I was scared. I had no idea what the SAT was like. I go in and I take this exam. And like a day later, my mom gets a phone call and it's like, your daughter needs a private lesson. I was like, what did I do? What did I do wrong in order to get a private lesson? Apparently I had done really well on math and not so great at English. So I think I got like a 1400, something of the sort, but it was like almost perfect in math and my English was just really subpar. So then I met you for the first time and you were like, okay, we don't really need to study math. You're gonna do fine in that. You need to catch up on your English, because I was always a math kid growing up. I was very logical. I didn't need much there. That was like, I was already ahead in terms of school, but I had negative grammar skills. I still do to this day, but I know all of it. I just can't really write as well as I can now. You told me that I needed to read more. You told me that I needed to understand the actual structure of the exam, and you turned English into a logic game and grammar into a logic game, which really worked for me because that's how I learn. I need to understand rules and treat it as if it was math. So that's what really changed things for me. You would also give me a lot of homework, but I think it worked. You would give me books to read. You gave me lists of words to memorize, and I loved memorization, so that was easy. The fact that it was framed in the logical sense, and the fact that I had to do it because I knew that every Tuesday I would come, and if I didn't have my homework done, I would get yelled at. Every time I would take another practice exam, I would do slightly better and slightly better. And then when I ended up taking the real exam, I did better in English, which was the funniest part. I got a perfect score in grammar, and I didn't know how commas worked before coming here. So I thought that was really helpful, and especially since that has carried on throughout, because I still remember all of the ways to use a comma. Actually, I still read a lot. It might not be as educational as I used to, but I will always be on my Kindle.
One of the things I used to assign as reading was Plato's Republic, right? Specifically like Allegory of the Cave, to get you to start thinking.
I didn't read that one.
I don't think you did, but that's besides the point. We did try to expand people's understandings and people's comprehension as far as like more logically and philosophically, and start applying one of my philosophies as far as vocab is concerned. I was like, okay, well, if you can apply the language, if you can apply these new skills, then it becomes much more adaptable and much more useful. Especially like speaking around people at the dinner table, you throw in a couple of fancy words that you learned over at SAT prep, all of a sudden you're like, oh.
Yeah. Especially with my mom. She obviously, English is not her first language. And I love it when she'll just randomly throw out like a nevertheless that I taught her how to use. And it just sounds so out of place, but also great.
Yeah, it is good. It's always good. So where you're at now, let's talk about this. So we not only did the SAT prep, right? We did that over the course of a year.
Yes.
We're assigning homework, assigning whole 9K, content review, turning everything really into a game, because that's basically what it turned out to be. And then we started doing the college process, right? Because that was years later, right? I remember specifically, I was constantly asking you about specific internships or clubs or different activities that you were doing in school. So tell me a little bit, or tell the audience rather, about how that process works.
Yeah, initially, I didn't really know what I wanted. I knew I wanted to do something mathy. I knew I didn't want to be a mathematician. Then in school, I had taken a computer science course and I was like, enjoy coding. I think this could be a good path to take. So I said I was gonna major in computer science. And then I was like, I wanna be in the business world too. So I decided that I would combine computer science and either economics or finance or business in some way. And I started looking into programs. And a lot of those programs don't really exist. You have to be either an engineer or in business school. That's kind of it. So we started looking at interdisciplinary programs that you can take classes in both, or you can have a business major that has a huge computer science requirement. So my college list was very much tailored towards me. I wanted something where I can take classes anywhere, that I can join any kind of club, that I wasn't really limited, because I came in as a computer science and economics major, dropped economics almost immediately because I did not understand it. Yeah. And then I liked the interpersonal side of business more than the actual financial side. So I decided that I should do computer science and math because I was always good at math. And then I would do business as in terms of the club side of things. So I would make the connections, which I think business is all about. So I was able to do both computer science and math, which are in 2 different schools at Vandy, and I'm getting the same degree, which is pretty cool.
You just geared a lot of different colleges and a lot of different majors and a lot of different categories, and you just started nailing things out, cut.
Yeah.
And that's my recommendation for most students is to be like, okay, I'm not gonna take anything off the table unless I really just truly despise it, right?
Yeah.
Some kids like hate math. Okay, so anything involving math is out, and probably including comp sci because they're very closely related. But if I hate English in your case, right, you're not gonna go for a law degree because you'll be sitting there reading all day, okay? Not necessarily for you. Do you remember that process? How was that process like for you?
I'm not a writer. I've never been a writer. I hated it. And I'm really bad at articulating what I want to say. And when it's a question about talking about yourself, I can describe myself in like a sentence. I cannot describe myself in 300 words that are really big and fancy and convey to someone that I'm unique, because I'm a very mathematical, logical person. That's just not how I am able to express myself, so it was really hard for me. But I think once I got the ideas of what I wanted to write about and what I could really actually talk about and which angles I wanted to portray my story in, it was way more helpful.
That's what we were doing.
Yes. I remember you would you made me sit down and write everything that's happened to me.
Basically, yeah.
And just like what stories are actually what shaped you to who you are today.
Kids nowadays, I form it a little bit differently and I tell them to journal and start journaling soon. Because journaling just gets their thoughts on paper and gets them writing. Some people are so worried about writing about themselves because they're not used to it. It's a little bit what you're doing. Like journaling is writing about yourself.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Sure, if you're not used to it,
Yeah.
right? If you're a person who journaled since you were 5 years old, it's so easy because you already have all that information. Then it's just time to consolidate it all into one real essay. The problem here is that a lot of people aren't introspective. You're extraordinarily extrospective. Extraordinarily. You see every little detail of every piece. Do you think you look at things internally?
No, not at all.
That's interesting, right? That's interesting. It depends. I look at everything internally first and then expound it onto the outside world. You look at things externally and then see how those external factors play into you. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I'm a very observant person. I see the logic in the world. And I don't really want to think about myself first. I want to see what's going on and take in my surroundings first and then see what's going on with myself. So that's why it was really hard when I was thinking about what to write about, just because I think about things in a third-party sense rather than in terms of myself. So when I think about things that happened to me, I'm like, this is what people around me were doing. I don't really think how I felt in the moment because it was more so what was going on. I think that you just need to become slightly more introspective. At the end of the day, you might be overall thinking about the rest of the world, but you do know how you felt. You do know how things changed the course of your life. You can think about those events. You can think about everything that's happened and just tell yourself the story so it feels as though you're not living in it. It's like it's a story that you're talking.
So you think about yourself like a character in a play,
Yeah.
or a character in a book. And you're thinking about yourself from the extrospective perspective.
It's very meta.
Which is very meta. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even think of that, but I guess that would work for somebody like you. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. So are there any last minute things that you wanna tell the world, tell kids your age, give your last bit of advice?
Stop thinking of everything as it's gonna affect your whole life for the rest of the world. When I cried about my 1500, that was pointless. I still got into a great school. It was not the end of the world, but in those 2 days, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never get into college. I thought that was it. Same thing, my dream school was MIT. And when I got deferred, I also cried for 2 days. And I was like, that's it. I'm never gonna accomplish anything. It doesn't matter. Everything at younger ages is like an electron in comparison to the entire world. It's so meaningless, but in the moment, it feels like it is the end of the world. But you shouldn't really think in that way.
It's like time dilation. There's this theory that as we get older, time for us gets much faster because we have more to compare it to. We're constantly comparing to our experiences, which is interesting. This is Lolita Rozenbaum. Okay, she was my student back in 2016. She's officially graduating in May, right? And what's your GPA going?
3.8. Could be better.
Okay, Lolita Rozenbaum. Okay, she was my student from back in 2016, 2017, a million years ago. Okay, 1570 SAT score. This girl is an absolute monster. Yeah, I'm really proud of her, and we're still here. And I hope in 10 years we're gonna have the same kind of interview. Like Steve Jobs. Thank you so much.